At the War Memorial, as Syracuse gets ready for 3-3, Dan Duva along with Crunch assistant coach Rob Zettler. And Rob, this obviously the first time that Syracuse has dealt with a real slump so far this season. But this week the team has taken a few different approaches in trying to get back on track. Tell us about what this week of practice has been like.
Well, we've kind of combined a lot of different things, to be honest with you. We've had some skill. We had a coach that we bring in every now and then to do some shooting and some stick handling drills with us. We added a lot of physicality in our practices, a lot of D-zone covers, a lot of one-on-one battles, winning battles or getting to the front of the net offensively and preventing people from getting to the front of the net defensively. Our skating coach was in this week, and the timing is interesting because it all kind of fell this week, and it coincidentally happens to be when we've lost a few. So, you'd look at it and say, well, they're, bringing in all the reinforcements to make something happen, but it just happened to be that this is when everything was scheduled, and even if we're 7-0 in the last 7 games, those things still would have happened. So, but what we did try to focus on is a little bit more, winning blue paint battles offensively and defensively.
And so those things that you talk about and bringing in those coaches, things that you guys will work with, how does that influence the play on the ice once games get going again? Is it the reinforcement? Is it a physical refresher?
I think it mentally just kind of changes the voice. It kind of changes the look a little bit. They bring in some new drills and some new things to do. Some things are real interesting. And, the skills guy is real fun. He's a lot of energy, and he's really upbeat. And so is Barbara Underhill. She's great. She's, really excited, really passionate about her job. And she, really sells it to the guys that this is critical. And it is, because obviously skating is critical to your success as a hockey player. So she does an awesome job with us too. So, oftentimes it's more just, different voices, sometimes saying the same thing and sometimes saying different things. Just depends on the situation.
And you guys will have 3-3 this week after what was sort of a January without a ton of games. We talked about it earlier in the season. When the team's playing a lot of games, they're playing well. And I wonder if maybe now that games schedule is picking up a little bit more, if that can be helpful.
We hope so. I know as coaches, I'd prefer to just kind of keep the train rolling and be playing games every second or third night. But, that's just not the case. It's we don't play a lot of weekday games here in this league. So we make the best of it. And we tried to make the best of it this week by taking advantage of our practice time and doing the things that we thought needed to be addressed.
As you address those things, what are they? And one that notes for me is the first goal. The team losing the last 6 out of 7. The only time you guys scored the first goal was in the one game that you won.
Yeah, and that's a stat that rings true at any level of hockey. I think generally speaking, it's about 75% of the teams that score the first goal go on to win the game. So it is important. It's important to your psyche to start the game, and it just gives you a real lift. And, to play from behind all the time is a tough thing. You losing to Rochester or whatever it was, 4-5-1, you score a couple goals, you think you're playing well. Well, in my mind and the coach's mind, that's not really doing it. You got to do it at the beginning of the game when it's 0-0. To play or score a couple and it's 5-1 when the other team is potentially, backing off a little bit mentally and probably physically, it gets a little bit easier to play. So we got to focus on coming out of the gates and getting it done early.
Yeah, and Julian Brisebois, the Crunch general manager, said that in a letter to the fans earlier this week, and sort of saying this group can play extremely well when the urgency is there. And for whatever reason, it hasn't been there in some games recently. Is there something that can be done, whether it's procedurally, mentally, physically, to get the team ready right from the get-go?
Well, it's just that's the message. When we're not urgent and we're not ready to go, we don't play well. We've got some skill in this team, but so does a lot of other teams in this league, and there's a lot of parity within this league. A lot of good hockey players, a lot of good teams, and a lot of good systems for that matter. So if we're not showing any urgency, one, you're not doing your job as a player, and it's up to us as coaches to try and make that happen.
And the Binghamton Senators, a team that you guys have been right with neck and neck, and now they're a few points ahead. Springfield has moved a couple points ahead, and they shut out Adirondack last night, the team that you'll be playing Friday and Sunday. Team you haven't seen in a while, but players lost there for the Phantoms too. How do you match the game up on Friday?
Well, they'll be, I think they did. They lost some of their skill, like you said, in Shen and Couturier. So, and they were a focus for us when we played them earlier, especially on the power play and special team units. But they'll be ready to go. They're fighting for their lives for a playoff spot right now. So we expect them to give us everything they got, meaning they're a hardworking team. I know their coach, Terry Murray, expects a lot from them and demands a lot from that team. It's not going to be an easy game. You look at the standings, you look at wherever you want. It's not going to be an easy game. We know that. We understand that as a staff, and it's up to us to relay that message.
And it'll be the Crunch against the Phantoms home on Friday, against the Albany Devils at home on Saturday, and then over to Glens Falls for the Sunday afternoon game. Rob Zettler, thanks for your time, and best of luck this weekend.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it.
With Rob Zettler, I'm Dan Duva.